driver that's out there is probably Servia if you're looking for a veteran in the case of Bobby Rahal.
Well, I mean, Servio has certainly had his opportunities and his chances, so we'll see what happens. I mean, he's a great pace car driver, but it just seems like there's been team after team, year after year after year, try to give him that ride, try to give him that opportunity. He's the fail-safe go back to. Has he passed his prime? Does he have what it takes? I don't know if I'm Bobby Rahal, if I want to look at him as a full-time ride. I don't know, because I look at his resume. And great, he's great around the track. He's got a lot of friends. Go ahead.
Remember, this is an Indy-only ride, not a full-time ride.
No, I know that. I get that, but that's what I said full-time. My fault. I meant Indianapolis 500 rides. We keep trying to give him rides, and it doesn't always work out. But, no, you're right about that. Well, let's talk a little bit about our friend James Hinchcliffe. And we know he's been teasing this like a prom date. So we kind of maybe have got it honed in. If our calculations are correct, we think that he might end up at Andretti. And why do we think that?
That's the only possibility left as far as the Indy-only rides, because we know he's got to have to go with the Honda ride because the Honda with Canada money. The Genesis money obviously doesn't influence that, but it's certainly the Honda of Canada ties certainly mean that he's going to be a Honda driver. We know that Dale Coy is probably not going to run a fourth car, even though they did change the number from Alex Ballou to 19 to 55. Some people thought the 19 was going to be safe for Hinchcliffe. I doubt that's going to happen. I still think they're going the route of James Davison for that ride. And then you look at the other possibilities. Well, what's left? And what's left is possibly the last stragglers. If Juncos cannot get a Chevy deal, well, they end up with Honda. We know Hinchcliffe's not going to go to Juncos. And then I don't know if Clausen Marshall's coming back. I'm hearing the rumors that they do not have the funds this year to return to Indy, which is unfortunate, but that's looking like that's the scenario right now for them. So at this point, it's either Andretti for Hinch or Hinch is going to be without a ride for the Indy 500.
Well, he's got a history with Andretti, as we know. He used to race for Andretti, and I hope he does get a ride. I mean, he's a fan favorite. I mean, he's a personal friend. I like the guy, so I'm rooting for him. I hope he does get a ride there. But you're right. By process of elimination, we have cracked the code, if you will, of James Hinchcliffe out there. And I kind of think that we already know that there's a deal there because of the way that he's been teasing everything. Because the only other option that we could extract from the bizarre videos that he's been posting on Twitter is that he's going to be on the Amazing Race, much like Connor Daly and I forgot the other guy that was on there. But let's talk a little bit about this rookie by the name of McLaughlin. Let's talk also about a comparison that was made to an Indy legend, already a rookie, being compared to a Rick Mears. Tell us that story.
Probably the best guy you've never heard of. It's a guy named Scott McLaughlin. He is the two-time defending Australian V8 Supercar champion. He drives for a team that is co-owned by Roger Penske in association with the former sports car and part-time NASCAR road ringer Dick Johnson. He's won the last two championships there. He got a test run in a car at Sebring, did a masterful job. Got another test run at COTA this week, was the third fastest of the test overall, and did a test, I think, either yesterday or today at Texas Motor Speedway for an oval track test. He's already been confirmed as driving a Penske car in the IndyCar Grand Prix. That's the road race prior to the Indianapolis 500. And like we said, Roger Penske is calling this guy as the next version of Rick Mears, which is saying a whole lot about a guy with a limited amount of IndyCar or open wheel experience. And to me, that sounds like this is a guy that he's not willing to give away, which tells me he is destined for a full-time seat with Penske in 2021. Now, of course, the big thing about that, though, Tom, is, well, does Penske expand to 4 cars or do they keep it 3? And I think the situation is they're probably going to stay with 3 cars, which means, who loses their ride? I would say at this point they're not going to get rid of Will Power because he's still one of the top drivers in the sport in his prime. You could say the same thing about the defending series champion Joseph Newgarden. And yes, while Simon Pagenaud swept the month of May last year, beyond that he didn't do a whole lot. So I hate to say it, but for you fans of Simon Pagenaud, unless he does something real special this year, I have a feeling unless Penske expands to 4 cars, he may be without a ride with Penske for 2021.
And see, that's kind of where I know we're stretching a little bit past this year's Indianapolis 500 to next year to 2021, and a lot can happen. But one thing you can say about Penske is his loyalty that he has to his drivers, and we've seen that with Elio Castanedas. We mentioned Rick Mears. Rick Mears is still around the organization, so you look at that aspect of it. And the other aspect of it, Simon Pagenaud is an Indianapolis 500 winner. That's not something that you easily say goodbye to. Either as good as McLaughlin is, and as good as he might be in the future, you don't just say, well, thanks, but no thanks. You won an Indianapolis 500. And Penske, Roger Penske and team especially doesn't do that. Now, I know that he's not involved in the day-to-day operations anymore with the team, obviously because of the ownership of IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but the legacy and the foundation and the ground blocks for his company are still there. And loyalty is one of those things that he's always had and always talked about and always preached about. I would find it surprising if he did not go with that 4th car in 2021. Although we're still early, and although we think right now that may not happen, I can't see them letting go an Indianapolis 500 winner. That's just my opinion and my thoughts on that matter. Let's talk a little bit about the rookies. Rookies earned their spurs, their oval spurs in the Texas testing. Talk with us a little bit about what happened out there in the Lone Star State.
Well, I think if you look at Rookie of the Year candidates, I think obviously Alvaro Askews' name steps to the plate right now. Obviously, we don't know how he'll fare at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but he was the fastest of the newcomers besides McLaughlin with Arrow, McLaren, Schmidt-Peterson, defending Indy Lights champion, and of course, though, still needs to prove himself when we get into real racing at St. Pete next month, but I'd say among the candidates, he looks good, but I think a lot of people are now starting to believe in the future and the potential of Alex Palou. He was equally effective with the Dale Coyne team that, let's face it, Tom, has lost several major cogs in their technical department this offseason. I mean, Craig Hampson went to McLaren. Eric Cowden is now with them, but I wouldn't say he is the best, an equal replacement to a Craig Hampson. But the fact that Palou looks so good during the test, I think he has certainly a candidate for a rookie performance. Now, I don't think either of them are going to win a race like Colton Herta did at Circuit of the Americas last year as a rookie. But I think we got a very good battle shaping up for that Rookie of the Year honor between Palou with Coyne and Oliver Askew with McLaren SP. And even though he's not technically a rookie, Pato O'Ward is among the Rookie of the Year candidates because of lack of experience. So we'll see what O'Ward can do, especially considering the fact that he certainly didn't make himself look good when he failed to qualify for the Indy 500 last year.
No, not at all. Let's talk about some other teams, some other drivers. Sebastian Bourdais got his new home there with AJ Foyt Racing, looking very good, looking like he's going to have a good time there. Also, along with Foyt there, we heard the announcement and the retirement announcement of Tony Kanaan, not running full time. He's going to run like five runs this year, and then he's going to slowly cycle off. But basically, his retirement has come with Tony Kanaan and Sebastian Bourdais looking very good with Foyt. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the Foyt stable.
Well, one thing that was cool during the COTA test, we got to see them throw back to the old Copenhagen black and orange
wasn't that cool?
livery, which is cool. Now, granted, obviously, because of the Furco lawsuit, they can't run the Copenhagen, stickers on the car anymore because obviously with the tobacco ban, that's no longer allowed. But it was great to see that livery back. Bourdais seems to be competitive with the car. Well, I think Tony and I think we'll have some very good runs on the oval tracks this year, including the Indy 500. My fear is, though, that Dalton Kellett, his first year, considering he was not necessarily a big star in Indy Lights, even though he had a lot of experience and had some good rides, I don't think Dalton Kellett's going to be able to get everything out of that car that's capable. And you talk about guys that are going to struggle. If indeed we have 36 cars on the entry list, Kellett's going to be one name. I think it's going to have some problems possibly being able to get in the field of 33 in that third Foyt car.
What do we know about what's going on with Ed Carpenter and how he's putting his team together?
I think the situation is simple again. The big thing I have as far as, I think they'll have a better road course program with Rinus VK in at the wheel. My only concern is if indeed it's going to be a 230 cut line to make the Indy 500, I'll be very curious to see how these rookies fare because as far as I remember, Tom, and you might want to correct me on this, I think in the history of Indy 500 qualifying, only one rookie has posted a 230-plus average in the history of qualifying in Indianapolis. And that was Scott Dixon in 2003. So if indeed the bar's been raised, I'm going to be very curious to see how these rookies handle with that raised bar.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just, I was sitting here looking at these pictures of the new IndyCar. I'm like, it feels weird. It feels different. I know it's a needed necessity, but this aero screen just it's taking me some getting used to. So as a fan, looking at these new aero screens, trying to get used to this in my mind and my visual, it's got to be the same way with the drivers getting in and out with these aero screens. How are they adjusting with this new change?
I'm assuming that there's a situation where they can detach that aero screen just in case the car catches fire, so they can easily extricate a driver out. I'm assuming that's in there. I don't know that for sure, but I would think that would be one thing where they can easily detach that to get a driver out, such as if the car gets on fire. If there's something else where they need to get the driver out as soon as possible. Hopefully that's been added in there, but again, I don't know as much about the safety concerns with that as far as being able to extricate a driver out quickly. That's my only concern. And then the other thing, which I think could really influence, for instance, the Indy 500, is about this cooling box. There's been some issues about cooling. They have a cooling system in the front nose. Well, having that cooling system in the front nose is going to ruin the aerodynamics to be able to, get drafts and suck up to cars ahead of you, kind of like what happened to Ed Jones when he had the hole in the front nose of his car a couple years ago. That cost him possibly a shot to win the race. I'll be very curious to see if people do not run or close off that air box in the front nose to be able to get better aerodynamics in qualifying for Indy and then over the course of 500 miles. The question is, though, how is that going to affect driver fatigue if they can't get that cooling, control where they have it through the top of the helmet like they have in NASCAR? That's going to be very interesting to see how that influences things. And I think we'll see it might not be who has the fastest car, maybe who is the fittest driver that possibly ends up winning the Indy 500 this year, if that's indeed the case with this cooling system and teams cutting it off in order to improve the aerodynamics, where the cars are more streamlined and able to suck up to the cars in front instead of having that, kind of handicap if indeed they run with that cooling box where the aerodynamics are going to be altered, around other cars.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were talking about that this week, that we could see a lot of, with those changes, we can see in all types of racing, there's the drafting issue. There's the air drafting issue with that. But we see it utilized very thoroughly and effectively in NASCAR. I think a lot of people are going to say that we're going to start seeing that happen in IndyCar as far as the drafting and the ability to use that to the advantage of a team. What are your thoughts? What's that?
Well, I think we already do see it. I mean, we had 68 lead changes, and that had a lot to do with the drafting in 2013. So I think we've seen it for years. It just hasn't been mentioned because of until this issue cropped up with the aerodynamics could be altered and affect that. That's where I think